Hello everyone! With this video I'd like to give you an insight on the Adabas Audit Data Viewer as part of the new Software AG product Adabas Auditing for ZOS. My name is Adriana, I'm the one on the left in the picture, besides greetings from Berlin, and I'm a project manager at Beta Systems, which as a new partner supported Software AG in reaching the ambitious goal to develop and launch Adabas Auditing for ZOS. With the direct line to the development departments and over the time of the project, I, as a non-technical person, have learned a lot, and now I want to share my experience with you. But before we start, let us take a quick look on the big picture. The left side, everyday's business. Accessing Adabas database and adding, modifying, viewing or deleting something. Directly or through a custom application, you know that. The auditing of Adabas becomes now possible with the Adabas Audit Server, which can be adjusted to your auditing needs using the pretty handy Adabas Manager. Once auditing is set up and configured, all the log information from Adabas will be collected by the server and pushed to the Adabas Audit Data Retriever. Wow, what a long name! But that's okay, as this application is capable of actively indexing all the data and archiving them for a long time. So it's earned it. The last piece of the puzzle is the Adabas Audit Data Viewer, and this is the application where I would like to take you on my journey of discovery. So let's start. As working in the software industry for about 20 years in my business life, I'm continually confronted with old and new software applications to work with, knowing the possible risks that this entails. As a private person, curious, impatient, and playful, I can then hardly wait to get my hands on new applications to try them out. So thinking about the viewer, the first thing that came into my mind was, surprise, surprise, how do I get access, and most important, is this secure? What you need to access the viewer, which is a really small web application, are three things. First of all, you need a browser. I used and use Chrome, but it could also be an Edge, Firefox or Safari, and the URL of course. Secondly, a backend you like to connect to, we call it endpoint. Do you remember the application with the long name? Correct, that's the endpoint. Even several of them are possible. And before you ask, TLS is supported in the connection to the mainframe where all data reside. And third, your user credentials. On the mainframe, meaning, hey, it's RACF secured. I will use my locally installed Audit Data Viewer, which runs with the Tomcat 10 and Java SE 16, which is much more than required. And now you see a quite typical login screen. In the drop-down, I only define two different endpoints. I just need to select my backend holding the index data I like to audit. And then I have to enter my ZOS user credentials. So my username and a strong password. By the way, you can even perform a password change. You can use this toggle to show the password in case you're not sure if you entered it correctly. And now you see I didn't use a strong one. So let me hide it again and then I can enter my real password. And that's it. Welcome to the Adabas Audit Data Viewer. That's how the application looks like. So let me ask you a question. What would you do next after having access to a new application? I'll tell you what. I often think of, am I able to adjust anything, or do I even have to? First of all, I want you to know that as a user you can start to work with the viewer right away. There is absolutely no compelling reason for additional configuration, but there are a few nice options to customize the viewer to your needs. In the upper right corner there is this user icon where I can select my user profile settings. The first parameter has something to do with a feature I will show you later in this video. I'll leave it to the default. I guess the second parameter doesn't need an explanation, just let me quickly change it to international. And the third sets a limit on how many lists will be displayed while searching, an option to improve the browser performance. More interesting is this little checkbox here, as this has a direct effect on how the search mask later will be presented to me. Checking this parameter will remove specific search fields that are theoretically available, but doesn't fit to my current search based on my file selection. And don't worry, in case you like or need to see them later, you still have the option to use a toggle to show them or not. But here you set a default behavior. I personally like to hide everything I don't need or cannot use, so I'll activate this and then save my new settings. Another way to adjust your viewer affects the displaying of tables. When displaying a table, use this little cogwheel to open the table settings to set the row height, piece of cake, or more important to me, to select and rearrange the columns. And that's what I like to do now. With the check mark, you select from a list of available fields the columns you like to appear in the table. So let me remove the submit user, I'm sure Stefan won't be too upset about this, and the extension. And instead I'd like to see the tenant, a title would be nice, and the line counter. You can also rearrange the position by a simple drag and drop. I think the tenant should be first, but the title, I don't know, is just more like a note to me. So let me move it a bit more down, meaning to the right when the table is displayed. And even renaming is not a big deal, as you can see. Whatever you do, it changes the appearance of the table right away. You can see this in the background while I'm changing the column subscription name. There. After you saved your adjustments, from now on this will apply to all tables. And in case you're not satisfied with the changes you made but can't remember the original settings, then just restore them to the default. Well, I think you have an idea of what you or an auditor can configure to work with the viewer. As I always love to say, sometimes less is more. But I think now it's time to use the viewer to its purpose. So the question I'd like to answer is, how does the search work and how flexible is the viewer? Oh dear, I know you can't wait to see the viewer's main functionality right now, but let me first step into the concept of indexing the data. When dealing with big data, performance is always an issue. Try estimating yourself how many Adabas auditing log files might be written in your system environment in 10 years. So the search process is separated into several steps using dynamic layouts and predefined indices to make the search more comfortable while increasing the chance to get the results you're looking for. At first, select the subscription provided to you as defined in the Adabas Manager and do a global search over all files that belong to this subscription. Here it is helpful to have a specific index defined, we call it a global index, to identify all log files containing the data. Quite typically for a global index in HR data, for example, could be the personal ID, or from an administrator's perspective, the Adabas command or the ID of the performing user. And don't worry, you are able to use mass. Who the heck knows all IDs by heart? When doing this global search, there's just one simple but obvious rule to keep in mind. The more specific, the higher the performance in the whole process. The result of the search gives you back a number of files including descriptive meta information where the search criteria do match. You can then select the audit files you want to do your research on in more depth. And from now on it's time to drill down into the data, or as we call it, do a search refinement using more specific criteria provided by the already defined layouts, dynamically fitting the available indices in the selected files. At each step of the process, you can go back even several steps, in case you like or have to change something in your research. In conclusion, as I love to visualize everything, think of the search process as a treasure hunt. Subscribe to a trip and limit the area, select the spots you want to dig into, and then drill down till you find it. Maybe this picture helps you to understand as it does to me. And that's how everything looks in the viewer. On the left you can see the subscriptions I'm allowed to access by RACF, and in case the list is too long you can use the filter above to get the right one. The huge space on the right is for displaying interim findings and results at the end. If you expand your subscription folders, here organized by tenants also, you can see all the available predefined layouts that can be used for the search. I will choose the one holding all employees information in the beginning, as I'm not sure by now what I'm going to find, but I have a range of personal IDs to check. With a click, a search mask opens, fitting the selected layout, which I can change on top of the search model, if I like to. For example, selecting this gives you the opportunity to search for a specific database command. But let's switch back to the former one. What I do know is a date range for my search. Let's take the last year, and that the employees of our US offices have a personal ID starting with a 3. I guess. Or, was it a 2? Honestly, I can't remember. But let's go with the 3 as my starting point. Next, I can select the files I want to take a look into. Here, the result just shows one hit, the downside of using a non-productive demo system. But I assure you, if there are more files, you can go on by selecting all of them, or just a few, or Only one? It depends on you. The search refinement will always work on those selected. In the refinement, I will use the same search as before, but limiting the results to job descriptions starting with an S, as I hope to find not only sales representatives, but also support engineers, senior analysts, or singers contracted, whatever. And that's the result I will get. I have to admit I'm not satisfied with the result. There should be more findings. It seems to me that this might be employees data of RACF department. Perhaps the personal number started with a 2 after all. So let's go back using the breadcrumbs above to repeat the search process using the same subscription and layout. Yeah, this looks better. But wait, why did our secretary get so many hits? I mean, there's only one in the US, so all I see here has to be her. As you may recognize, my ambition has just aroused to find out why she, or better her data, got these findings. So again, let's go back in the search process, but now by just editing the last search, as I like to focus on her data only, with the advantage that now I know her personal ID. Okay. And now I can see all the transactions affecting her data. And that's it. As simple as that. As you could see, the concept of the search process, going back and forth with the option to switch between the layouts or by modifying a former request, gives you the flexibility you need to search such big amount of data, especially when doing a forensic research, for example, where you don't know in the beginning where everything leads to in the end. I'm happy now, and I think it's time to reap the benefits of my search, and I can't wait to find out what's going on with those secretaries' data. So, what will I be able to see as a result? For viewing the details of your findings, just click the record. On top, you'll find the event that has caused this entry in the Adabas log. I am not an Adabas expert, and between us I actually know nothing about Adabas, but I'm sure you recognize that immediately. Oh no, I mean the title of the entry, not that I'm not an expert. Well done, Adriana. I'm probably the laughingstock of our company for a few days now. Never mind, just get up and move on. In the info section, you can see all the system information about what happened, when, caused by whom, especially in case of data manipulation or espionage. That's the essential information you like to have. Collapsing this section reveals another one called Data that holds all tracked information on the data entry itself. And if you're a database administrator or a system programmer, then you might be interested in some other background information you will find in the other tabs, such as the LPA the log is coming from in the client info or the specific command in the request info. When working with the viewer for quite some time, you will also notice that the number of tabs will differ depending on the track command, and there's a simple reason why. Reading or searching for data doesn't matter, but every update will provoke the system to override the old data with the new ones. Like a makeover in any TV show, there will be a before and an after image. And that is exactly what the viewer will display in two different tabs called DSBI before image and DSAI after image. Likewise, adding data to the database can only cause an after image, while removing data left you behind with a before image. Comprehensible, isn't it? But let me return back to the secretary data. Since the number of entries is manageable and I don't want to open and close each one separately, I can also simply use the navigation bar to view the next or previous entry. And lo and behold, besides reading access and researching the data, there was even an update in between. It's a pity that the logging for before and after image was not activated in the manager here, but that's not too bad, because the data seems to be sorted chronologically. So let's see what has changed. Alright, looking at the last name and the marriage status, I guess congratulations are in order. Hopefully I don't forget. I guess this is a good time to stop here with the demo before I start sidetracking too much. Moreover, there is still a question I always have to ask. Is there anything else useful that I should know right now? And the answer is yes, of course. In order not to go beyond the scope of this video, I'd like to mention only two not so obvious functionalities. One is explained very simple. In the results view, when displaying the content of your hits, there is an option to download the results in a special so-called A-log format for further processing. If you're firm with downloading files from a web application, there is no magic on how to do that. Hit the button, select the location, name the file, and click Save. For the other functionality, which I do not want to understate, we must now travel into the future. Think back to my search today in 2021, but imagine it is now 2031, so 10 years ahead. Again, do you remember the application with the long name because it can hold all kind of data for a very long time? It can do so and still being resource efficient by setting old data to offline and migrating its archive with an option to retrieve the data when it's needed. But the more the data you have and the older these are, the longer a search request might take rummaging through this archive. In order to prevent sitting idle in front of the screen just waiting, the viewer recognizes the data as offline and starts the search query in the background so you can go on with whatever you do in the viewer. This is called a scheduled report. Next to the user icon in the upper right corner, you can click on the clock to see which search queries, you can give each one a name you like, have been scheduled and what's their status. And as soon as the data is available online again, you can then see the result of your search by clicking the report. And referring back to the user profile, the parameter pooling time, that was the first one, determines after how many seconds scheduled reports are updated. Now, phew, seems we're at the end of this video. Let me sum up. The Adabas Audit Data Viewer is secure. Check. It's modern and dynamic. Sure. It is pretty revealing when it comes to get an in-depth look into any Adabas database transaction that took place, and it has some practical additional functions. And don't forget, this is only the first version, so you can be curious what helpful functions and improvements there will be in the future. I hope you enjoyed my tour de force discovering what the view is all about, and if you are interested to know more about Adabas auditing for ZOS, feel free to ask your Software AG contact person of trust. There's only one thing left I'd like to say now. Stay safe, stay curious, and thanks for watching.